brought to you in living color on... It just starts in black and white.
Hi, I'm Kevin Kavanaugh, and I'm running for re-election for State Senate in District 16. As a telephone worker for the past 33 years, I am committed to representing working families and the issues that are important to them. The future of our state starts with our kids, and we need to have the programs that give them the skills needed to be productive members of our workforce. This includes job training and workforce development programs, public school funding, and reducing the cost of higher education. As someone who attended Manchester Public Schools and now sends my kids to Central High School in Manchester, I understand the value of a quality education. As your senator, I will vote against any bill that would reduce funding to public schools. In addition, we need to reduce the tax burden on property owners to allow young Granite Staters to buy a home and start their family here. Property taxes are preventing young people from buying homes in New Hampshire and forcing retirees on fixed incomes out of the homes they love. We need to stop giving tax breaks to large, out-of-state corporations and start providing our local communities with property tax relief. With the support of local police and fire organizations, I stand committed to the public safety of our communities. There is no greater function a state can provide than for the safety of its citizens, and I will be the supporter and an advocate for the people who serve to protect our communities in the work they do. Police officers, firefighters, and EMTs are at the front of dealing with the drug crisis, and it is important that we provide the resources they need to keep our communities clean and safe. Thank you, and I am asking for your vote on November 6th.
Hello, Manchester, and welcome to another edition of Ward 13. Your Ward 13 host, John Hopwood, has graciously given some of his television time to this feature, Meet the Candidates. I'm your host today, State Representative Connie Van Houten, and I'm joined by Representative Patty Cornell. We would normally introduce ourselves a little bit more fully at this time, but our first guest is a bit short on time, so we'll get right to him and let the viewers know a bit about ourselves later. At this time, it is my privilege to introduce New Hampshire State Senator Kevin Kavanaugh from District 16, who is also the Manchester Alderman from Ward 1. Senator, would you please introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us who you are.
Sure. First of all, Patty and Connie, thank you very much for having me on. It's great you're doing the show. So my name is Kevin Kavanaugh. I live in Ward 1 in Manchester and also represent District 16, which is Bow, Candia, Dunbarton, Hooksett, and Manchester Wards 1, 2, and 12. And born and raised in Manchester, never left, and proud to be a part of Manchester. And just really got involved, always been a part of sports and coaching. When I was old, my kids, I coached all their teams, and just saw a need when Joyce Craig was running for mayor, and that's when I stepped up and ran for, for Alderman in Ward 1. And just continue that, and my biggest issue, I think, is saw the need with public education and funding, and the lack of, and what we have to do. So that was kind of my driving force with that. And so a good friend of mine in 16, Scott McGilvery, he was another coach, great man, great family, knew his wife Patty well. And he won. I was glad to see that, and I helped him run in that election. And sadly, he passed away suddenly at, I think it was 52, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And just really had a lot of the same ideals as Scott, and wanted to carry those on and really kind of keep his legacy going with that too. And so I really feel like I've done that, and I know a lot of his family I've met many times that say, so we're watching. So and I know his his ideals are mine. So it's really what got me going, and here I am now. So it's we had that special election in 17, and then had to re-up for this first full term in 18, and running for re-election this year.
And I'll definitely agree with that. I knew Scott. I taught with Scott McGilvery at Memorial, and you do. You epitomize a lot of the values that Scott brought to the plate. And so we're very glad to see that you were able to step into his position and carry on his legacy in a different way. What I'd like to do right now, as the viewers may or may not know, you are in the Senate, and Patty and I are both in the House of Representatives. And so we have that commonality at the state. At the local level, you are an alderman. Patty and I have both served on the school board, as well as having taught in the district. So I'd like to separate the two topics a little bit so that we can focus in on concerns that are both state concerns and local concerns. So first of all, let's start with the state level. And before we do that, I'd like to explain something. I represent Ward 12 on the west side. Patty represents Ward 11 on the west side. We live mere miles apart. And yet you're my senator, and Patty does not share you as a senator.
It's crazy how
it is.
Yeah, right.
So just to quickly explain, there are 24 senators, and so the districts are much larger. And there are 400 state reps. And essentially the way that it works out is that, and I said I have represented Ward 12, I actually represent 10, 11, and 12. The way it works out is that roughly each of the state representatives represents about 3,500 people, give or take. Ward 12 is somewhere in the vicinity of 9,000 people, give or take. And so the two representatives, Jane Bolio and I, represent the three wards because I'm confusing this, so let me just come back a little more slowly. Let's take Patty's ward. Patty and Willis Griffith represent Ward 11. They represent roughly a total of 7,000 people from Ward 11, 3,500 each. If Ward 11 has 3,000 people that are unrepresented, or 2,000 people, whatever the number might be, there is a stretch across the three wards to pick up those extra people and have two other representatives. And that's how Jane Bolio and I end up representing Wards 10, 11, and 12. And then ironically, Patty ends up with Lou D'Alessandro as her state senator, a few miles away.
A great senator.
Yeah, and a few miles away, I'm lucky enough to have you, Kevin. So I may have said that somewhat confusingly, and if I did, I can try to clarify at any point. But basically, it's a way of evening out so that every person in every ward has full representation. And in Ward 12, for instance, 2 Ward 12 representatives, and I'm the 1/3. To give them that magic number. Similarly with you, dividing up into 24 districts is daunting at best, and we haven't even talked about redistricting yet. You want to start with that?
Sure. I mean, I was disappointed we didn't get that third-party redistricting put in. I think that was the answer to keep it to keep both parties happy. Really, I mean, to work together to really do it equal and fair for everyone. And so we'll see now. Now it's going to be up to the election and see who's in the majority. And, it's like so many issues. There's so many important ones, and this is just one of them. And it's just, with a lot of the vetoes we've seen this year, it's just disappointing in some of them that we, bipartisan support coming through some of these issues, and the veto. I was surprised with a lot of them, but that one in particular, because it's a very important issue, too.
And we, of course, have a Democratic majority in the House and in the Senate, and our governor is Republican. And oftentimes that makes no difference. We all value the same human types of things, but there are times when that kind of juxtaposition comes into play as well. So yes, I think redistricting is still something on the table. Before I continue, I'm going to have Patty take the next question, but before I do, we all have different assignments up in Concord. Yes, you sit in the Senate, but there are individual committees on which you work. Could you tell us a bit about what they are and how they are?
Yes, I chair the Commerce Committee, which is a lot of business insurance issues that come through there. And it was very busy this year. And we had a lot of bills. I think we had one of the omnibus bills after just a totally different year with the coronavirus, of course. But
right.
I'll tell you, my head was spinning for some of those calls when we were going through this. I think we had finally 37 bills wrapped into one bill. Very proud of all the work we did. The whole committee, both sides, we all worked together to get a lot of them. There were some issues we knew we weren't together on. We were just gracious with it, but it's just the way it is. But we worked some long hours in getting that bill through, and glad to do it. And I'm also the vice chair of ED&A, Executive Departments Administration. A lot of licensing issues come through there, and that's very interesting. We even had one coming through this year that I think that went through Commerce, actually. No, for lobstermen and changing the way that what they can do. So it's really interesting and diverse, the groups you see. So I've learned a lot. I mean, from everything from sitting as an alderman, especially as sitting as a senator. It's interesting to see how government works and what you can do to help people in New Hampshire.
I know, until you get there, you don't really have an idea of the scope of the work is and the scope of the interests that people have. Because I am your counterpart in the House. I am on the House Commerce Committee, and we always have the most bills. And yes, we sent you a whole pile of. People don't know maybe that there is crossover. Both bodies need to deal with the bills, and they were just a pile of bills. And so I think we on my Commerce Committee, on the House Commerce Committee, we're very proud of what you guys were able to do on your committee, because that was truly a daunting task just for commerce, but then across the board it was
really was.
Incredible.
It was everything you sent. There was so many great bills too, and it was good that we can combine a lot of both sides. I mean, but it was just, I mean, it's never been done. It's just, I mean, hopefully we'll never go through this again, that's for sure, but we don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, it's definitely on both chambers. It's a busy committee, and
Yes.
We had the most again. It's a lot of work, but it's just you get a lot of things done, and you really see a lot of different aspects of business in the state that I've never been seen up close like that.
Oh, me too.
Yeah,
Insurance and liquor and bills of that sort. And liquor isn't really just liquor per se. It's vaping and youth tobacco and such. And the scope is incredible. So my hat is off for you in that position for sure. Patty, did
right
you
back
want to
at you too.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any priorities or issues that, if elected, hopefully this next term, that you would like to see?
One thing that was disappointing, again, we get back to the vetoes. I don't want to keep on harping on that because we want to talk
Right.
positive things. But we had a lot of worker protection bills. I can't remember. It was in had some cheat notes here. So 1494, I think that's the one it was. But that was a lot of like personal protective equipment,
Yeah.
frontline workers, and what we can do for them. And that's all we were talking about during this whole time. And to see that veto, that was just very disappointing as well. So I mean, I think we've got to. There's some unemployment issues we had in there that I think that would be something I want to look at, because that's going to. We're not through this. Everyone knows that. It was, I mean, even how we are here now with the mask. It's a smart way to do it, but it's we've got to keep on worrying about the people on the front line, and it's been incredible, even to see the grocery clerks. I mean, so many of the other ones we always think of, but the basic needs, and we're all going through it. Even when you couldn't get toilet paper, we couldn't.
Yeah.
Limited to what you can get for food. It was just incredible to be a part of that. And those people were showing up for work, and it's just, for me, I mean, from my background as part of a labor union, and it's not just people that are organized, it's people that are working. And if you're a blue-collar worker and you're working for your family to feed and house your family, we've got to protect those workers, and that's going to be definitely something I'm going to be pushing this year. If I get in.
And I think that word hero just took on a
Yeah.
totally broad definition this time. Some people that have always been quiet heroes in our lives
Right.
really showed their mettle and really stepped up for us. And I think we need to be very proud of those people.
Right, especially the long-term facilities too. The people
Sure.
going into work and it's really putting themselves and their families at risk to help care for the residents in those facilities. It's just incredible to see. It really is.
And I saw you going for a cheat sheet, so I went for one too. I don't want to be one-upped by you. And I actually pulled out, I think it's probably an 8-page cheat sheet here. I'm holding a printout of the bills that you were part of or sponsored or co-sponsored. And there's an impressive 62 bills down here. We know, of course, many of them did not go through because of the demise of the end of our session. But there's an impressive look at great things that you were looking at. And for instance, negotiations by individual public employee bargaining units. And some of these, of course, they didn't go anywhere. I can't say that they did. But I hope that you are back so that you can champion them once again. As a matter of fact, I have one or two I'm thinking of asking you to think about co-sponsoring with me as well. But for the viewers, and I don't want to go through the whole list, but for the viewers, I think it's important to recognize the daunting amount of work that your senator has done on your behalf, and it just runs the gamut from all sorts of things that you'd never think of. So some of the things are nitty-gritty things that are just,
They really are, and it's even
Yeah.
some of that, like that one, the negotiations, that's really a way just to keep negotiations going, and that's what we want to do. If one group, right, it reaches impasse now, they shut down every state group, which is just important to keep those negotiations going. And a couple, if we can touch on that quick.
Sure,
even
please
for
do.
the Manchester Airport, kind of a dual role with working with Ted Kitchens about even the transportation network companies. Those companies coming in, the TNCs picking up fares. When they lost that money to the cabs still have to pay their fees to the airport, and getting that passed it's really, I mean, the airport's an economic engine for the whole state, and it's just, it was important to get that, and working with Ted, and we got it through, and it's very important for everything, so proud of that one. There was another one, even at the reverse auction, it was Senator Rosenwald, Cindy Rosenwald from Nashua, was the prime, and it came through Commerce, and it was a lot of work getting that through, but it's just an important thing for the state, for both sides, with
Right.
prescription drug costs, of really, even the Josiah Bartlett came out and said that the potential savings over 3 years is $53 million.
Now, which bill is that? Which,
That was 865,
I don't-
685,
not
I'm
so
sorry,
much the number,
685.
but
But it
what-
was, so companies have to come in, the pharmaceutical benefit managers come in, and to do business, they have to have an auction type thing with the state, who was
Okay.
gonna supply these drugs for what costs they can set. They did it in New Jersey, they only did it for private sector, public sector medical plans. And one of the things we added with that was public and private. And it was just, I mean, I think it was 1.2 billion that New Jersey saved, but I mean, and it's proven. This is benefit managers, this is labor unions, business owners, state officials that really came together from all over the country to start this movement, because it affects everyone, for anyone that's on any kind of prescription drug, and it really has the potential to beat down some costs and really get some cost savings to people in the state. And
Right.
it was 685.
okay.
Now that I'm saying it, I know I'm going to mess it up.
it is. I'm
Another
looking at it right
another
here.
health benefit thing was the copay for insulin.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
That's a really
That's the
important
best,
thing.
yeah, $30, right? The best in the country,
Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
Senator Feltus was the lead on that too, and he and Senator Rosenwald, Cindy is
Yeah.
just great with those issues too. I mean,
Yeah.
you guys know her; she's
Right.
served
Yeah,
with you
absolutely.
for so
Yeah.
long. Yeah, they're two. Those are great bills. It helps
Yeah.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
I can't remember the numbers now, but
Yeah.
the numbers of people that are using insulin,
Yeah.
it's just in the state is
Yeah.
huge.
And the cost before this for those people is just, if you don't have insurance, people weren't getting their insulin.
Yeah. Or then you heard stories when they came in
Yeah.
dividing up their medicine
Yes.
so
Yeah.
when they really needed it, and it's just it's terrible. That's why
Yeah.
getting health care coverage and those
Yeah.
kind of costs down is very important.
And
And
one
even-
thing that got vetoed that I thought was absolutely horrible was the dental coverage for people on Medicaid. I mean, to me, that just doesn't even make any sense to veto something like that.
Yeah, it's like an ounce of
You know.
prevention, right? It's just
Yeah.
that
Right.
we're
Right.
going to spend more money on not helping people
Yeah.
early on.
Yeah.
And it's like so many other issues with that, right? Any kind of healthcare
Oh,
issues,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
that just being one of them. It's just, that's just, I mean, sometimes I think some people just look at the immediate cost when it's really, you look down the road, and
Yeah.
that cost is going to be a lot bigger.
Yeah, I'm looking at 684 relative to Medicaid to schools. That was signed by the governor. That's a
That was a good one
piece of-
too, especially
yeah.
in Manchester.
Exactly.
That helped us a lot.
And
Yeah,
maybe
it
we
was-
should segue over to local issues with
Yeah.
that. So how did that impact us in Manchester to get the?
Oh, I wish I had that paperwork here. It was millions of dollars that we
Yeah.
got, and it was very important because
Yeah.
we lost that money. Both of you sitting on the school board too.
I was
have.
only in the school board for 4 months. I
Well,
replaced.
you know then. But it's that helps so many kids, and in
Yeah.
the city we have such an amount of kids that are needing assistance. I mean, whether that or breakfast and lunches. I mean,
Yeah.
everything. So it really helped us a lot, and that was important. I'm very glad that was signed and went through.
Yeah.
We're kind of blurring the line here between state and local, so if you kind of just work with us and go
Yeah.
wherever we want to go with this one. You mentioned the COVID pandemic, which is so incredibly devastating to our world right now. And so much is impacting us here, including schools and things. Small business. I worry about them. I walk down Elm Street and I see them closing up. Where do you stand on the whole thing about how we can help small business, which is the backbone of so many of our communities?
It's the backbone of the economy in New Hampshire. It really is. I mean, the employees that it employs and families that it helps is incredible. And I was honored really to be on. I got a call from Commissioner Caswell, and when they were putting the governor's economic recovery task force, GERT, and that to me, you talk about going through commerce and business issues and insurance issues. I got to talk and meet so many small business owners from around the state, from every different industry, when they're kind of telling us how they can open safely and what we can do, and just giving those guidelines to HHS to either approve or change, and then to the governor to decide whether to sign or not sign. And I think that task force, I mean, we've met, I think the total is like 46 times so far. I don't know how many hours. We were meeting 3, 4, and 5 times a week in the beginning, 3-hour calls. But it was so important, and I met with some restaurant owners here in Manchester, and it was devastating to hear, because they were so close, or they didn't know if they would ever be able to open. And people put their life savings and their whole lives into these restaurants and small businesses, and it's just to see it open. I knock on wood, and hopefully we've done the right things slowly in New Hampshire. I mean, you never know what's going to happen, but you look at the numbers now. I think we're doing a pretty good job throughout the state, and it's again, really to be on that was nice. And you don't know going on to these task force, because you have industry leaders, you have there was 4 senators, 4 state reps, 4 from each side, and we passed so many unanimous recommendations, and it was awesome to see, because there were times that we had to make changes, we had to meet in subcommittees on top of that, just to kind of iron out, okay, where are we, what can we live with, or what do we think is going to be kind of too overwhelming to either keep in or take out. So that with small business it's been incredible, and there's been a lot of, again, people around the state that you're dealing with over the phone and with Zoom calls, that you learn a lot about what they're going through, and how many employees are home and out of work. So it was very proud to be a part of that task force.
And we're proud to have your steady hand on that, because it is so important to us here in Manchester. Patty, you had a question.
One of the other things in Manchester, and I think it comes down from the state too, is the homeless issue. You know, in Manchester, it's big. I think a lot of it's mental health issues. It's a lot of other issues, but affordable housing is just not available in Manchester.
Right.
You know, do you have any ideas on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things we could do with really even the in-law apartments. But I mean, so
Yeah.
really first with the homeless, I think, and there's no easy answer to it. And I get a lot of complaints as an alderman about that, and it is. I think it's a mental health issue. The first, we have 40 plus open beds right now. A lot of people don't want to go in beds, and
Yeah.
we've got to. This is one part I think the state has. I don't want to say any bad, because I think the Commissioner's done a good job, but I think they could have. Manchester's taking on the state problem. We really are, and we can't do that. We need that, and they have committed now to come in with counseling, more outreach, and more money. But it's a slow process, especially when people. I mean, it really threw a wrench into it when the CDC is telling us to keep everyone together, and that one came and really took off. But it's something we've got to address. We've got to get these people help. We've got to get into homes and off the street. And it's just, I'm not sitting here to say I have all the answers for it, that's for sure, because it's very complex with so many parts to it. But we've got to do everything we can to clean that up. It's not healthy for them. It's not healthy for the city. It's not healthy for the people that are staying there. And it's something we've got to really. I mean, I know Mayor Craig is front and center on it. She's leading this, and she's doing a great job. But it's just, and I know I'll get calls with it too, and people are frustrated. I'm frustrated, but it's something. It's got to be a priority for the city and the state to really work together to address this, because really Manchester again is really taking the brunt for the state's. I don't want to. I mean,
Well, I think
they should have jumped in.
we provide services, so people come to Manchester to get the services, and then they're here.
Right.
And so, you know, and of course we provide the services because we want to do that.
Right.
You know, and other places who don't provide the services,
They're going to go where the services are.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do it, and then
Yeah.
at some point we have to get them into saying you're not staying here on public property or harassing people on
Right.
the streets, or with break-ins and everything. One of my biggest I used to laugh about it. My biggest call I'd get of complaints are potholes, but it's not. I mean, it's a lot of homeless now, camps, and it's on everyone's. There was one they thought was in Livingston. So the police went out and said there was some kids that put up a lean-to, but everyone's thinking that. It's just that's the first thing you think, and it's just we've got to do something. It's got to be and it is a priority for everyone, the city and the state.
And you're juxtaposing between the city and state, which is fantastic. I just want to remind the viewers that the masked man that you're hearing from is a man with two important roles in our lives. Actually, he is a senator from District. Is it 16?
16, correct.
Represents District 16 in the New Hampshire Senate, and here in Manchester, he sits in the seat of the Ward 1 alderman as well. So and of course, Patty and I are at the state as well, and we are dyed-in-the-wool Manchester cheerleaders and advocates,
Right.
and so we're bouncing back and forth.
And it is. They're so intertwined, and there's so many issues that pertain to, like I said, the airport homeless. It's not just Manchester, it's the state. It's everything that's combined with it. So yeah, it's interesting because I say the same thing. I love Manchester, and it's just talking it up all the time. It gets a black eye with a lot of things, but it's not comparable to most of the towns in the state. It's just because we have issues as a small city that most others don't. But it's just. I love it here. I love the people here. I love the pride people have in what we have. We just had Manchester North Hooks at Little League won the district championship, and it's just, two communities coming together. I love it. I'm proud to be here and proud to do anything we can to move it forward in a positive way.
Patty, I think we have time for another question. Is there one more that you wanted to throw out?
No. So you went over homelessness. How about schools reopening? Do you have any ideas on that? Or
Yeah,
it's a big one. We could talk for an
big one,
hour.
that's right. Yeah, this is, and I think, I think you had to open. I think the only kind of setback I would say, I think we've got to look. I don't feel comfortable setting a date. I think we've got to look at data like we've done. Keep the kids home for a while. If the numbers stay down, slowly come back in. I think the school board. I think Dr. Goldhart did a great job, and with Mayor Craig, and it's. But it's another tough one. We've got to do something to get it back, because even the socialization of kids. I mean, my daughter, who's 19, is going back to college for her sophomore year. She's got she wants to go, but it's going to be, like she said, it's going to be kind of boring, a totally different experience. And my youngest son is going to be a senior at Central. So it's complicated. It's complicated, and we've got to help the kids. We have to help the teachers. The teachers are in such a tough spot, and I think we really have to let them prioritize. If they, so I know some that are caring for relatives, and they can't go into the school around all these kids, even if it's 2 days a week, and going back to care for their relatives. And there should be. We've done a lot with Stu for Work. We have I represent the full-time professors for the community college system, and we're doing a lot of. Really, people have individual issues, whether they can or can't go back, and they've got to be addressed individually. We can't just make a blanket statement of saying everyone back, no one back, so we've got to work together. But the only thing I worry about is I think we've got to do that. Putting a date on the calendar, I think we've got to go with maybe look at the data leading up to that date and then make a decision. And hopefully we'll get there.
And the reality is, as you said, things evolve every day. Will there be a vaccine? Will there not be a vaccine? How safe is it in our school systems? It's just, there are so many things there. And I too applaud the efforts of the school board. I know as I watched the meeting the other night, my only thought was, I'm glad I'm not on that board. I could not have made that board vote. It was just
you look
incredible.
at the survey that came out with the parents, it was pretty much split.
Yeah.
But again, that shows we've got to treat it as individuals who can and can't go back. And I mean, even if you're healthy, dealing with some your own kids, how are you going to be in class when they're in class? So there's a lot of things we've got to look at.
Yeah, and I see the three of us sitting here, and I feel quite empowered as a citizen, as opposed to being a member of the legislature, but quite empowered as a citizen to know that people like you are going to be at the helm of the questions that have to be answered as we go through a time that's just unprecedented and doesn't have any answers clearly laid out for us. As we come into the home stretch, I just want to mention, I mentioned the incredible number of bills of great value and great virtue that you were involved in. As a Ward 1 alderman, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are on the following standing committees: Finance, Committee Improvement as the chair, Human Resources Insurance, Lands and Buildings. You're also on special committees for airport activities, solid waste activities, alcohol and other drugs, and youth services, and possibly sleep every now and then as well.
Well, they don't meet all the time, so it's just a little easier. But there is a lot of committees on there, but it's just, I mean, we can usually go through a lot of that pretty quickly. But it's, again, I think you talk about how proud you are of things at the state level. I always comes back to you. I am anyway. I'm sure both of you, like from where you're from, and how you can help your local community and your friends and neighbors who you live with. Like even political signs. I don't want to put them in public property. I want to put them in someone's
Yep.
yard, so they're going to talk to their neighbors.
Yep.
And who is this person? Yeah, I
Right.
think that means a lot. So I'm glad to do it. It's just, I feel lucky. I really do, that to have the chance to serve like that in both capacities. And it's an honor. It really is. And it's just, I feel the same towards you two. It's great to have that representation of people that are level-headed, knowing what real people, working people are going through. And it's just, I want to thank both of you for that too.
Well, as we come into our final few moments, because I know you have to leave, and we could do another 12 hours.
This is great. I'm glad
We have a
to
list
come.
of topics
Yeah.
here that really, deserve their own hour each, probably. But as we close out at this point, let me just ask you a very generic kind of question without really any understanding of what our world will be like tomorrow, as well as into the future. What do you think our biggest challenges ahead will be, and what do you think your priorities or our priorities should be going forward? Major question, and I'm sorry to throw that at you, but we're running
Yeah.
out of time.
Well, no, but I think it's this virus. I think right now we have to get a handle on that. We have to. What's going to happen if it spikes? So a lot of it's unknown. I think the answer is going to be a vaccine, like you say. Our world has changed, and it's just. We talked about that even with the schools and doing the construction work. It's just we have to look at things differently from that perspective, because we have to protect all of our citizens, all of our employees, state and city employees, and especially, like we said, more vulnerable long-term facilities. It's just I think that has to be everyone's priority to see how we get through it, and that's going to be, I mean, from the national level down to our local level. That's it's going to be very important.
Another quick yes or no question. Are you running for re-election?
I am.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm very glad to hear that. I'm going to close things out at this time. I'm going to thank our guest, who is two people in one, Senator
things,
and
exactly.
Ward 1 Alderman Kevin Kavanaugh. His role in the city and the state are inestimable. We see him working every day, and we know the kinds of things that he's doing. To call him our senator, to call him an alderman in our city, it's just very important to us, but also to call him a colleague and a friend is something that I think I will say on behalf of both of us. Whatever you're off to do, it can't be as great as being here with us. But we're going to go to...
But thank you both so much, Liz. And it gets down to that personal level as friends, and I really do mean that. You've always been so supportive and everything, and it's just very nice. Thank you.
We'll go
Thank
for a
you.
quick break, and we'll be back to introduce you to somebody new in Manchester.
I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Hello, I am Patricia Cornell, and I am proud to have represented Ward 11 in the state legislature. I was born in Manchester and have lived and worked here my entire life. My husband and I have lived in our home on the west side for 40 years. Before I retired, I was a guidance counselor at the middle school at Parkside for 36 years. I am involved in the Manchester community, having previously served as a Waterworks Commissioner for 6 years, and I am presently a Manchester City Library trustee. I would like to return to Concord to continue working on issues that affect families in Manchester. Some of the issues that most concern me are affordable housing, the continuation of the Medicaid expansion program, affordable higher education and skills training, adequate funding of our public schools, and fair treatment and equal rights for all people. We need to provide funding for the resources for the prevention, treatment, and recovery for opioid drug addiction. Disabled people are on a wait list for services. We have to commit to strengthen our comprehensive mental health services. We must end the stigma associated with mental illness so those suffering will seek and receive help when needed. Underfunding of our mental health system has caused people with mental health issues to spend days in emergency rooms. I will vote against giving tax breaks when the result is an increase in property taxes for local communities. The estate tax and inheritance tax were cut. The business profits tax was cut. The state is not living up to its funding responsibilities. The state stopped contributing to the cost of the retirement system for municipal and school employees. School building aid was eliminated, and state aid to public schools has declined. As a result, local property taxes are increased or community services are cut. This has to stop. I am asking for your vote on November 6th so that I can continue to work for the people of Manchester. Remember, please vote for Patricia Cornell, State Representative, Ward 11. Thank you.
Welcome back, Manchester. We just took a quick break, and let me just tell you quickly what we did during the break, other than to make a quick change of people on set. We actually did a quick cleaning of the set. If you'll notice, we're all masked. We are very much believers that we need to do our part in helping the COVID pandemic to be harnessed. And so you will see that we also will follow our own guidelines. So we did a quick cleaning of the set. I think a white glove touch would probably pass for this. And I just want to give a shout out to Representative Heidi Hamer, who was doing some of the cleaning. She's not actually on set, but she's our production assistant, shall we call her? I think we'll give labels to everybody. At the beginning of the show, at the beginning of the hour, I kind of just dove right in without really introducing us. We are occasional members of the studio production team here. John Hopwood, who deserves every bit of thanks for what he's done for us, is typically the host. So you may not know who we are. I'll start briefly with a little brief overview of who I am, and then I will turn it over to my co-host. My name is Connie Van Houten. I am a lifelong New Hampshire resident, mostly a lifelong Manchester resident. I did go away to college and a few little forays here and there, but Manchester is my city. It is my heart, and I came back and have settled here. I live on the west side. I am currently a state rep. As I explained very poorly, I think, about the Flotarial, I represent wards 10, 11, and 12 with Jane Bolio. I have served on the school board. I'm a longtime teacher. I retired from a variety of teaching venues, including mostly high school, but college, English as a second language, adult education, and so on. I don't want to belabor who I am. I think that I've met many of you through the screen and many of you on site as well. And so I'm going to throw it over and have my co-host give you a brief introduction to herself. And then we have a very special guest, somebody that you've not yet met on camera, and we think he's a welcome addition to the team that we present on camera to you as we go through these Meet the Candidate sessions. Patty, you're up.
Hi, I'm Patty Cornell. I, too, am a lifelong resident of Manchester. I've lived in my house in Ward 11 for 42 years now, and I was a guidance counselor at the middle school at Parkside for 36 years until I retired 7 years ago and ran for the legislature. I'm running for my 4th term now in the legislature, and I serve on the Education Committee, which, I was really happy to be put on the Education Committee after serving 36 years as a guidance counselor, so that's the thing that's most near and dear to my heart. But the people of Ward 11 are actually my first thing that I think of when voting on bills in the legislature. Is it going to be good for Manchester? Is it going to be good for Ward 11? And that's the way I make my decisions and how to vote. And that's probably just about it for me. So now I'll introduce the person who's running in Ward 12 for State Representative Bill Zakharoff. Bill?
Thank you. My name is Bill Zakharoff. I grew up in Goffstown, New Hampshire, a little west of here, and college brought me to Syracuse, New York, and my career took me to Pennsylvania, then Ohio. Then I came back here to New Hampshire, where I served on the planning board in Goffstown. About 3 years ago, I moved to the west side of Manchester. I love it here. I've always paid attention to what's going on in government and kept my name out there in case I was needed, and there was a need, so here I am, stepped up and looking forward to serve.
Is there any special interest that you have in the legislature? Are there any committees you're hoping to get put on? What are there any bills that you would like to co-sponsor or sponsor if elected?
One of the things that's kind of near to my heart is I spent a lot of my career managing condominium and apartment associations. In Ward 12, which is up on the northwest side of Manchester, you go from the north part of the by Rock Rimmon and go all the way north up to where Hooksett is. A lot of new stores there, but it's a part of town that has a lot of rentals and a lot of condos. And one thing that's changed a lot, even in the 20 years or so since I was renting, is that rents go up and up, incomes do not. So people are getting closer and closer to that line of just barely being able to get by month to month. Should something happen, as we've seen here with the epidemic, it won't take any longer than a week or two before people are underwater. And this is something that's of great concern to me, and I'd like to see what I can do to help maybe spread that gap between what we need to pay and what we earn.
And Bill, may I just interject? I spoke this morning at length, actually on a Zoom call with one of the constituents that, because I'm in 10, 11, and 12, that you may end up working with a major condominium issue. I was looking at the Mammoth Condominium Act and some bylaws, so I would certainly hope that you will be elected and be ready and willing to dig in with me. Condo law does come under the Commerce Committee, which is where I work, so I would love to have you on the team and have the two of us attack some of those issues. It was a very enlightening call, and I think our constituents deserve somebody like you.
Oh, thank you. I look forward to it. I'm filling some big shoes, as you guys know. Bob Backus has been representing that district for many years now, and he's done a terrific job. Everybody up there knows him. You all know him. Everybody loves working with him. So some big shoes to fill, but I'll do my best.
And I think you'll find Bob is very willing to be a mentor. His heart and soul will still be in Concord, regardless of where he may be vacationing, hopefully when COVID allows us to vacation.
He is, definitely. He's reached out several times to me to offer his help and assistance, and I'm going to definitely pick his brain.
Good, and you'll also be running with Ken Snow, too, who is a not lifelong Manchester resident, but for many, many years, and very active, too, in mental health and health and human services. So good running partner for you there.
He's definitely good,
too.
Because another big part of Ward 12 is there is, nursing homes up in that way. And that's another community that in many ways, at least economically, is similar to younger people in that at your end of your life, you have fixed income. And if expenses keep going up, your income isn't going to.
Yep.
So those people sometimes are left either undercared for or back in with their kids or grandkids or whatever. So there are a lot of similarities. Despite the difference in age, there's a lot of similarities economically between the two groups.
And we have, I'm actually a resident of Ward 12, even though I represent the whole west side.
May I please have your vote?
Actually, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. My ballot showed up today. Yes, and we do have our fair share of a concentration of elderly people living in congregate housing, and so your issues and your concerns are definitely well stated.
Yep, that's something that I've talked about with Ken a few times, and Ken has been very active in that community. He goes around and checks with the people there all the time, so he's right on top of their day-to-day concerns, probably more so than I, but he's willing to let me know what needs to be done and when.
And you're kind of bringing up the whole element of constituent service, which, as we speak here, I think sometimes we kind of speak without clarifying some of the things, because a lot of people in their daily lives don't really interact with anything going on in Concord. But a real important element is that constituent service. I mean, if someone calls Patty and is concerned about something on the playground and Northwest Elementary, which is just down the street
Nope,
from her.
Northwest is not mine.
But it's down the street from
Yes.
you, yeah. And so, and I know that you'll reach out and take care of it, or call and say, hey,
Gosling
Connie,
is
this
my-
one's yours.
Gosling is my elementary. And
So-
it's funny that you mentioned
Yeah.
that, though, because I do live a block and a half from Northwest Elementary, but when they redid the districting lines, it went right down the middle of Mason Street, and I'm on the side of Mason Street that now is part of Ward 11 and votes at Goslar, although Northwest is on my doorstep. So
We vote there, Northwest.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there was an effort to keep a school as much as possible
In each
of
district.
the wards as best we could. And that wasn't always easy to do, because our city was laid out not for 12 wards. It was laid out for the convenience of people as the city was growing. Let me just ask you, I'm sorry, did I interrupt?
No.
Let me just ask you this, Bill. When you come to Concord, what do you anticipate? What do you want to bring to the table in Concord? What are the skill sets that you're going to say, hey, here I am?
Hopefully good years, first and foremost. You know, a lot of people have been there a lot longer than I have. I don't expect to show up and reinvent the wheel. People have been working a long time to get things together and working, and it is working. The last 2 years especially have been great in the legislature. So big years, and hopefully a rational mind.
And you know that there are 400 of us, so if you're looking for rational minds, you're likely to find many, 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 many rational minds. I think you heard some of our interview with our Senator Kavanaugh.
Yes.
And many issues came up, many thoughts were shared. Are any of those issues anything that you'd like to address, having heard us talk?
Not straight off the bat. I don't have any one particular issue that I want to go in and change. I first want to get my feet wet and then decide where I can work best.
I think it sounds terrific. I think that's a very smart way to work. May I just ask, without getting too personal here,
Sure.
why are you bothering with politics? Today, a lot of people are saying,
It's always been an interest of mine, strangely enough. I think I was maybe the only person ever convinced that I was a Democrat by the oratory gifts of Mr. Dukakis back in 1988. That was the first time I watched the presidential election that year. And I thought, wait a minute, I agree with the little guy. And since then, I've tried to stay at least in touch with the party and in touch with people in government and serve when I can. I did not expect to be asked to serve, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
we're grateful to have you stepping up. We have a couple of other things in our next segment, but I'm just going to throw out one of the big questions that people are asking themselves today, and mostly, I think, with pretty good response. Kamala?
Oh,
What are we thinking?
I'm excited. I'm very happy. You know, I think it's a ticket we can be proud of.
Well, I have to say I'm very, very excited, and in fact, they did quote me today in the Union Leader and on Inklink, because I was originally a Kamala supporter until unfortunately, her campaign didn't work out the way we hoped, and then I became a Biden supporter. So I actually am just thrilled, and I think it's a great winning ticket. I think they balance each other. I think he's steady and methodical. I think she brings excitement and energy. They like each other. They'll work well together. I'm just thrilled.
And I think something that you just said is where I'm coming from, the concept of balance. She can both be kind and gentle and contemplative and thoughtful and ferocious and fierce, as we've seen her in some of the debates. I look forward to the vice presidential debates. I typically would have watched them almost in an obligatory fashion. Now I'm thinking, get that popcorn and pull up a seat up near the screen, well, assuming that there will be some debates. I don't know how things will work out. But I think that her fire and her compassion are an intriguing combination that are something that a vice presidential candidate will certainly, bring something to bear to the table. So that's one of the questions this morning. I think a lot of us are thinking Kamala. I didn't see it coming necessarily, but I didn't really see anything coming. The
had no
decision
idea.
took a long time,
Yeah.
so I wasn't sure we were going to go with that. We are running out a little bit of time, and so I want to get to
But one other thing we should
Please.
bring up with
Oh,
Bill,
yeah.
because he this is his first time running, and I don't think people that are running for the legislature think of it that often, that not only are we legislators that go up to Concord, but we're also Hillsborough County delegates.
True.
Which means I'm on the executive committee, so we do meet monthly, but as a whole, all of us from Hillsborough County are Hillsborough County delegates who meet to vote on the budget for the county. So we vote on the budget for the nursing home, for the sheriff, for the corrections, for the 4-H. It's huge. It's huge, and that is part of our responsibility to do too, because the county depends on what we do as legislators to fund them and to help them run.
And it impacts the tax rate. What we do for a
It
budget
does.
at the county level directly shows up in what you're paying for your tax rate. So, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Patty, because there are so many facets to being a state rep that until you actually get there and you think, really, I need to do that? I really need to be
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
And then you find all the things that you don't really need to do, but you want to do because they will broaden you as a person, as a legislator, as a committee member. A lot of our work is done in committee. We end up very much like brothers and sisters. There are days when we are happy to sit and have lunch with each other, and days when we think, really, my peanut butter sandwich is mine, don't touch it. So it's just an intriguing, incredible type of world that you'll be entering, and I certainly hope that you will be entering it. Have I missed anything, Patty? You know, we have a ton of papers here and a ton of topics, but time is just spinning on us. But there are two essential topics that we thought we would take up at this point. Do you want to talk about the census? And I'll talk about...
Okay. We just wanted to emphasize that it's really, really important that everybody fill out the census. I believe they're shortening the amount of time that we have to take the census, and funding our representation in Washington. A lot of things are dependent on that. So if you haven't done the census and don't want to wait for somebody to come to your door, you can just Google it, Census 2020, and fill it out right online and be over and done with. But everybody needs to do that.
Thank you for mentioning that, because it is such an important element. Something else that's very important, and I will briefly address it, and please fill in if I miss things, because it's a little bit more complex than I sometimes make things sound. That, of course, is voting absentee. Without any real understanding of what things will be like on September 8th when the primary polls open, or on November 3rd when the general election is held, I personally, and I don't know how others are doing it, but I am encouraging everyone to vote absentee. I mean, it could be a snowstorm, it could be a pandemic issue, there could be some reason to keep you away from the polls, and as an American citizen, I believe my vote is important. It is my one voice, it is my one chance to step up. My mother was an immigrant who was desperate to vote, and we had trouble proving her citizenship, but once she finally got her citizenship, that was the thing she wanted to do. Even when I knew, when I drove her to the polls, that she would go into the booth next to me and vote opposite to me, and we would cancel each other's votes, it was critically important to her, and I did do that. And so for absentee voting, it's really very simple. There is a change to the form. The original forms did not have a checkbox for COVID-19 as an excuse for not voting. That was uncomfortable for people. I understand that. They felt that they would be lying to check off disability or something of that sort. So the current forms do have that. You can download the current forms. There are several ways to do this. You can walk into City Hall. At City Hall, you can fill out an application for the ballot. You have to fill out an application first. You can turn the application in right there, and because the ballots are now printed, you can get the ballot and vote right there. You're done, and you can walk away. The other possibility is to print out a form or call City Hall to get the application, fill out the application, mail it to City Hall, and then when you get the ballot back, then mail that in. I want to stress, too, I don't know the truth of this, but I keep hearing that it's important to have 2 stamps on that envelope to make sure that it gets through, and important enough to mail early, to make sure that there's enough time, because the ballots have to be in by 5 p.m., I believe. I'm looking
On
for...
Election Day, yes.
On Election Day. So you have to account for that and account for the mailing time as well. So you can do that. You can do it by mail. You can call. You can walk in and do it. There are just no reasons to not do it. The one application that you will fill out will actually cover you for both elections. It will entitle you to have a ballot mailed to you for both the primary and the general election, and you can mail those in from the convenience of your home. Then you can pull up a chair or a corner of a sofa, watch this TV station, Channel 23, to see the election returns coming in at night and to be able to be part of that kind of a democracy. Have I missed anything?
I don't think so.
I do.
But if you
Sure.
can't get an absentee ballot, they've made every effort to make sure that the polls are safe places to be. The people working there will be wearing masks. They'll be socially distanced. They'll be wiping things down. So if by chance you find it impossible or you don't trust the absentee ballot, which are perfectly safe, the polls are a safe place to be.
That's important. For years when I've been politically active, well, actually all the time, I love the pageantry of going to
Yeah.
the polls. I love taking my pen, my marker, and making my mark. When I run, I love to be outside with my sign. I love to network with people and talk to people and remind them of things that they've asked me about or listen to the concerns that they have and just be one-on-one with people. When I'm not running, I will actually work in the polls, and I know some of the great people that work in there. I know that they are great. I know that they are mortal, and I think protecting them to the best of our ability is important. I do agree that the polls will be safe and be safe for those workers as well, but I want to ensure.
And
that
the
we're doing-
election won't be delayed.
Exactly. I think that's the important thing.
And it will
So
not.
for me, it's a bitter disappointment to tell you that I am filling out my absentee ballot today when I go home. I want to be at the polls. I want to meet you at the polls. I want to hold my sign. I want to be on a day that's not bitter cold like some of the November days, but nonetheless, I so want to be there. But I think that given the circumstances of our world, it's important for me, one, to do what is important, and two, to model for my constituents and for those people that I care about and that I love, that it is an appropriate thing to do at this time. Hopefully next year, when the city elections come around, we'll be out there and running around with our signs and running around with everything. And by the way, I may be a block away all alone with a mask and a sign perhaps, but not actually going to the polls. At this time, I'd like to close out the show. I certainly want to thank our two candidates. One is, of course, Senator Kevin Kavanaugh, also Alderman Kevin Kavanaugh, but his election now is the state election for senator. From Ward 12, Bill Zakharoff, who will be stepping up into the Manchester arena to take the place, hopefully, of Bob Backus and to represent Ward 12. Also, not in the studio, we've tried to maintain social distancing and to do things appropriately here. Heidi Hamer, Representative Heidi Hamer, has done a great deal behind the scenes. We are now calling her our production assistant, I believe. John Hopwood, who is also on the ballot for
County Commissioner.
County Commissioner, thank you. He has graciously given us this TV time and been supportive in so many ways. There's a glass wall back there, a young man named Brendan who's always very sweet to me and coaches me through my ear when you don't know what's going on. And most importantly, all of us, I think, are going to have to take a look going forward for the future. I just saw the signal that I have to wrap up. I really want to thank Patty Cornell, my colleague, my friend, a champion of great things in education. Thank you very much, Manchester, and thank you for joining us for today's show.